Hank, how are you doing this morning?
Hey, Travis, I'm doing good. How about you?
I cannot complain. And, Alabama football here with 21 commitments. We knew it was going to slow down at some point. There's just not enough room left on the bus to keep taking on commitments. But I guess there's some other reasons for maybe the news being a little bit slower and trickling out right now, right?
Oh yeah, it feels like it's been the dead period for like 3 or 4 months now. The calendar is currently in a dead period, essentially meaning coaches can't have face-to-face contact with recruits, so they can't host visitors for fall camp or anything. And it's really been the dead period since the end of June. There was a brief week-long window where it was open at the end of July, and we saw a number of recruits come on campus across the country. Went to several programs, but kick back in on August 1st, and we'll run through August 31st. So aside from just that, the typical, Twitter DMs and text messages and phone calls, coaches really aren't interacting with recruits much. That'll obviously change and change in a big way starting September 1st when the coaches can get back out on the road and see these guys in action on Friday nights, Thursday nights as well, and obviously host guys for home game weekends as well. So it's about to pick up, but yeah, that's pretty much that's the reason. There's really not too much happening at this point in August.
Hank, we know it's a neutral site game on September the 1st with Louisville and Alabama, but have you talked to any prospects, any UA commitments that have voiced their plans to be in Orlando for UL and Alabama?
Yeah, it's going to be a list that's going to grow here in the next week. Obviously, that's kind of Florida's a hotbed of talent, so Alabama, I'm sure, will do its best to get as many guys as able to come to the game. And what they can do, they can provide tickets. They can't actually talk to the players. They can just provide tickets for neutral site contests, as can Louisville. But one guy we talked to that's a Bama target, Ryan Davis, a four-star linebacker that's actually committed to Georgia. He told us he plans to be in attendance. He lives about 30 minutes up the road from Orlando, so he plans on going down with his mom and dad. Carson Beck, the 2020 quarterback commit from Jacksonville, he told me he plans to head down to Orlando next Saturday. And then an interesting name, we're still kind of waiting to see what his plans are. Five-star offensive tackle Evan Neal, his mother told us that they're looking into it. They haven't finalized plans yet, but obviously with IMG Academy being just about an hour or so away from Orlando, he might head over, considering IMG has a game on Friday, so they'll be available on Saturday to do a visit. So I think it'll be a pretty nice turnout. We saw a lot of big targets go to the Florida State game in Atlanta last year. Obviously, Georgia's another hotbed of talent as well. But I'm not sure how compared to last year it'll be, how big, but I think it'll be a good turnout.
You mentioned Evan Neal of IMG Academy, Hank. Is he one of like 2 or 3 offensive linemen still out there for this 2019 class that you would consider to have committable offers? In other words, even with the numbers getting tight, Clay Webb, Neal, a couple of 3 of these guys that if they want to pull the trigger, they can still very much be a part of this class?
Yeah, I think the offensive line is where it's really narrowed down the most as far as it's a clear picture of kind of where Alabama's going, and Evan Neal's in that picture, Clay Webb obviously, and then Darnell Wright, the other 5-star offensive tackle from West Virginia. I think personally any 3 of those guys can commit anytime they want. I think Alabama will take any of them from what it sounds like. And yeah, Evan Neal, he was a guy we haven't really talked about in the last year and a half or 2 years. He committed to Alabama a day after getting an offer back in his freshman season when Mario Cristobal stopped by his school and offered him, and then he backed off that commitment a week later, and we really haven't talked about him much since, but he's risen to be one of the best offensive linemen in the country. He had a dominating performance at the opening finals, and obviously he anchors the offensive line for IMG Academy as well. So he's come back into the picture, and from talking with people close to him, I mean, it sounds like he really loves Alabama. I think he has a little bit of family pressure pushing him to Miami. He's from Florida. He's at IMG Academy now. So we'll see. I mean, I think he likes Alabama and the family likes Miami, so we'll see who wins that discussion going forward. But yeah, he's one of those 3 that are Alabama's trying to finish off its offensive line class with.
And I know when it comes to sort of guys overall that rate highest on Alabama's recruiting board right now. In your opinion, it seems to be a couple of defensive guys, right? Linebacker, safety, those sort of players.
Yeah, I think somebody asked me this yesterday. I mean, inside linebacker is obviously probably the biggest need, and when you see a guy like Obi Dean still available, the number one inside linebacker in the nation, I think you could make the case that he's the biggest need to finish off the 2019 class with. But then you look at a position or a guy like Dax Hill, the number one safety in the country, and maybe it's not as big of a need as linebacker, but the type of player Dax Hill is, as far as he's a Minka Fitzpatrick type player. He can do everything in the secondary. He's just kind of, from a talent standpoint, it's just a guy that you just can't. He's like one of those can't miss guys. So I think you can make the case for either of those guys. Obviously, finishing off the defensive line class really strong. That's a big priority as well. But yeah, I would point more towards the defensive side of the ball as far as where the focus is turning to finish out the 2019 cycle.
Now, Dax Hill's a Texan, I believe, and with that, it sounds like maybe Michigan, though, is Alabama's biggest competition for Dax Hill.
Yeah, he's from Tulsa. I'm not sure if he grew up in Texas. I know he's in Tulsa right now. So a lot of people early on thought he was going to Oklahoma or Oklahoma State. His older brother Justice is actually the running back at Oklahoma State. So that was kind of the early picks. But yeah, as of the last month or two, it really has turned into more of an Alabama-Michigan battle. He's really gone quiet. His family have kind of stopped talking to the media. I think he's focusing on the senior season, but he does have an official visit planned to Michigan on September 15th. So we know he'll do that. And then the question then is, will he go back to Alabama before making a decision? Because he has said he wants to make a decision soon. And, once he takes that Michigan official visit, that'll kind of be, he's taken 2 visits to Michigan at that point, 2 visits to Alabama. So he's seen both schools in 2 different settings as far as an official and an official visit. So I would expect maybe we'll see something happen with Dax Hill by the end of September as far as a decision. I think he kind of wants to get this process out of the way, but he also wants to make sure he's given Michigan its fair shot. So, I said I like Alabama's chances for a while, and I'm going to keep saying that until I hear differently. But, it is a tight race with Michigan that'll be an intriguing one to watch this next month.
Yeah, and you talk about the 5-star inside linebacker, Obi Dean, seeing Ali Ko out there in the last week or so on the practice field at Alabama by way of Washington. I'm guessing that even Ko's arrival, in addition to that mix, it hasn't changed anything from Alabama's perspective in terms of trying to finish with a guy like Dean or a comparable inside linebacker.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. Certainly inside linebacker is still a priority. Maybe whereas before Ko came on the team, they wanted to take 2, maybe now they want to take 1, but I still think depending on the guys they can get that want to come, I don't think they're really going to limit themselves in that department. And yeah, Obi Dean, he's a priority, and he's still a priority pre and post Ko coming to Alabama. And I talked to Obi a little bit about it, and it's interesting because a lot of guys like to go to places where it's immediate playing time. They can see the field of their freshman season, and obviously Obi wants that, but he also told us, and people around him have said this, that he genuinely wants competition at his position. He wants an older guy to be able to, kind of learn from and compete with to make himself better. And he's one of those guys that when he says that, it is genuine, just with his work ethic and everything he's about. So, I think it's still full steam ahead on Obi Dean in that inside linebacker spot.
Now, it's not just about addition and recruiting. It's about retention. You're trying to protect your class, too, as you go through this process. With that in mind, Hank, is there a guy or two maybe committed to Alabama that perhaps the fan base might be a little bit worried about in terms of a potential flip to another program?
Yeah, there's always this time of year and more towards the early signing period and obviously February as well. There's your board kind of shuffles. Guys have good senior seasons. They kind of climb the board. People get bumped around. I think Rashad Chaney, he's a guy we've talked about a lot as maybe not really being in the class. I know somebody pointed out to me on his Twitter he took off the Alabama commit off his Twitter bio. talking to people around him, they're still saying he's committed to Alabama, but I think he's a guy it wouldn't be a shock to see maybe take visits or reopen his recruitment at some point. Everyone likes to talk about Brandon Turnage doing the same, but I said it earlier. I mean, Brandon Turnage has done nothing but kind of show how solid he is with Alabama. He visited 3 times over the summer. He only has 1 official visit set at this point for the Iron Bowl, and he said nothing but good things about his commitment status. But then you have guys we haven't really touched on a lot as far as their status. Justin Eboigbe, the 4-star defensive lineman from Georgia, he has an official visit set for Florida on September 8th, and then Alabama at the end of the month. I think he said when he committed he was still probably going to take some visits, so I don't think it's a huge shock. So, I mean, it's something to watch when your commitments are taking other visits. Byron Young has talked about taking other visits. I'm not sure he has any set at this point yet. And then there may be others as well. But for the most part, for how big of a class it is, most of the commitments I think are set and aren't planning to take any additional visits. It's kind of to be expected nowadays with guys committing and still kind of keeping things open. So it's not a huge shock, but those are kind of the guys I'd probably circle just to kind of keep an eye on this fall.
Talking with Hank South, recruiting analyst for BamaOnline.com on a Thursday edition of Southern Fried Sports presented by Mercedes-Benz of Tuscaloosa and Cartier and Lloyd, attorneys at law. As we let you go, Hank, looking at these national recruiting rankings, no surprise to see Alabama and Georgia up there in what looks to be sort of a volley between the two, going back and forth at 1 and 2. It seems like commitment by commitment at this point. But I guess there's the real potential for Texas A&M to make it a 1 through 3 type of situation for the SEC. Jimbo looks like he's getting it done in his first full year up there, even with sort of the scandalous report we saw from the USA Today here in the last day or two.
Yeah, it's both Texas A&M and Georgia have had really big summer months. Alabama, whereas they kind of, and Alabama did too, but it kind of extended into the spring more so when they really widened that gap between themselves and the rest of the programs. But yeah, I mean, I wrote yesterday, I wouldn't be shocked to see A&M get up to number 1 at one point. They're all so close in the numerical rating that, one commitment or one decommitment really affects their overall standing as far as 1 through 3. So I think it'll go back and forth for the months to come. It's going to be a tight race to the finish. But, if Alabama can finish strong with the guys it hopes to finish with, and it looks like they're in good shape with, I think it's going to be hard for them not to reclaim the number 1 class when all is said and done in February.